What does it mean, living more from the heart? It's so interesting that I have some of my clients, now most of them, they don't have that question, but some of them do. And they get quite frustrated and annoyed when they watch videos where it's like, you need to live more from the heart and like based on the heart, make your decisions based on the heart. And they're like, what does that mean? How do you do that? And for them, it is a concept that they have no connection with. And once there was this one client, a man, and he was really like, I've heard this stuff so many times before, and he came for coaching. And this is really annoying and frustrating because I have no idea what you mean. What does that even mean, like, you know? And it became very clear he was very, very, like his mental bubble was huge. Like he was so much living just from his mental perspective. Incredible. But this is not the only person. There are many more out there who have the same question. It's like in the spiritual field or personal development, it's always this like, well, the capacity lies within the, you know, the heart space and that. And they go, I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know how to put it into practice. What shall I do with this? And that is something I would like to touch on today, and maybe it helps you to move forward if you have the same problem. There's nothing wrong with it, to move forward in that area. Because it can be frustrating if somebody talks about something and you want to change something or you want to be happier, but you don't know how. And the first thing I would like to say about this is that this happiness that you're looking for is also something that you can experience in the heart space. It is not just a mental concept, right? Because many of those people, or maybe all of them, who can't access their heart or have the perception they can't access their heart, they have a concept of happiness, of joy and whatever, but really it is theoretical. They kind of feel they're not fulfilled, they're dissatisfied, they're maybe bored with their life, they don't live up to their full potential, they have often no direction where to go, or they're very clear in terms of a mental goal, like a job-wise or whatever, but they cannot reach the feeling of satisfaction or happiness or joy because it is a feeling. So the underlying issue or problem that is there is that they have been, throughout the course of their life, somehow disconnected from their emotions, so that everything is kind of on the surface. Now they do feel stuff, but it's very superficial, and the most of that they do feel is negative. And therefore, the whole emotional realm is almost like, it feels almost like a threat to them. And oftentimes they have been raised also with a belief system that being emotional means being weak, being non-sensible, and rationality is to be valued much higher than emotionality, and many of them even have been punished maybe for being sensitive or emotional, and have learned to put that aside and to devalue that and value the rationale a lot more. And then they grow up to be adults who have lost their sense of connection with their emotional world, with their heart. Okay, and somebody recently as well in a session asked me, how do you picture your heart when you do that, when you talk about the heart? Like, is it your physical heart? Is it a heart there? Is it light? How do you picture it? And maybe that's a good question for you as well, to ask yourself that when people talk about the heart, what is it you think about? And you need to ask yourself, does that image make sense to me? And for me, I realize the more I talk about a specific point or spot or location, it becomes more difficult to see it as substantial. For me, it is a space. It is like the heart space. So this area kind of where we feel stuff, right? That is, when I talk about the heart, it's like my emotional world. Who I am emotionally, who I feel myself to be, and how I interact then with other things emotionally. And one good way of finding out who you do or who you feel yourself to be is, maybe you've had this experience before, maybe I've mentioned this actually. Maybe as a child or a teenager or as an adult, I remember thinking that and feeling that as a child, experiencing as a child. When you are, and even now I still experience it, but like for the first time, the beginnings, when you're on your own, and let's say you're outside in nature, you're on a walk, like you go for a walk, or I remember, lying in the grass and looking up to the sky, or just being on my own somewhere, and there's nobody there. And the way you feel then, when you start talking to yourself, or maybe you never talk to yourself, I always do that. For example, I go for a walk, and when I notice I am totally on my own, a conversation starts to emerge, always. And for me, it is, I sense myself emotionally, I sense my own presence. And I realize I'm here. There's like, somehow I am here walking, but I also know I'm not just here. There's so much more of me somewhere, everywhere, but I'm also here. And the way this feels, it's nearly like the way my bigger self, my higher self, my inner self experiences me. That's how I feel myself. That's how I experience myself to be. And maybe you've had this, maybe it's for me, it's difficult to put this into words. And I do hope that I make sense. Even if not, maybe at some stage it will make sense to you. I just want to bring this to you because that is kind of how from the heart can be experienced. It is your emotional world, and you cannot experience stuff if you're not ready and willing actually to feel your emotions. And some clients, they might come to you and they say, help me with this, help me with that, I want more joy, I want more, everything that you say, I feel that is important too, so make it happen. But one thing they're not ready to do is they're not ready to feel their emotions. And there are very valid reasons for that, right? Often traumatizations and difficult experiences and great fear to experience emotions because that is not what they're used to, and it can scare them, and they rather stay away from it. And yet their soul pulls them again and again, or calls them towards who they really are, which is more joy, more ecstasy, more peace, more love. They're being called and they know it. And this is because if they weren't, they wouldn't be unhappy. They wouldn't be dissatisfied. They wouldn't be searching at all. They would just live their mental lives and good. But no, their soul is saying there's more. Remember, there is more. Before all this interference started with your emotional world, you were different. And this person you were, or entity or identity, you were before the interference with your emotional world. That is what you can look for. And that's, for example, people who have stayed in contact and connection with their emotions. That's kind of the essence of how they experience themselves when they're totally alone. But I want to encourage you that if you feel what I've just described, that disconnection to your emotional world, remember, your healthy emotional self is still there. It has not been destroyed. It is still there. There is a point in time when you did not have those wounds and scars from those experiences. And you can uncover that. You can release that. You can nourish that. But it means that you have to be willing to value emotional experiences again. Because that is the only way that you can feel alive, that you can actually feel I am alive. Otherwise you just know I'm alive, but you don't have that sense of aliveness, right? And your life is pretty much lived on the surface, but there's so much that can be explored and that wants to be explored and be experienced. So the first thing, you have to make a commitment. You have to be okay with allowing emotions back in, and not just as a means to an end, but as they are the treasure. They're not that which needs to be put aside so that you can function in the world as a rational being, as a reasonable being. Because working with your emotions, they can make you so much more reasonable, and I want to say wise. Your brain, your mind cannot gain that type of wisdom on its own, no matter how brilliant it is. That has to be inspired and fueled by your emotional world, by the wisdom of your heart. And that is the wisdom of emotions, because your soul is communicating with you through emotions. When you feel something is not right, when you feel something is off, you feel bad about something that somebody says about you or whatever, that's your emotions telling you, your soul is saying, no, that's not true. And therefore, valuing the emotions is the first step, and then allowing yourself to feel them again in little steps, because that also means allowing life back in, really allowing life back into your life. And I hope you get this, and I hope this makes sense. And what you will find is that it's not more pain and agony that is there waiting for you, because that is what many people are scared of. So that's why they shut out those emotions. What is waiting for you is an integration of those emotions that have been painful, maybe, right? Yes, it means you're going to have to make this your priority. You're going to have to work at this, because it doesn't just come like that because you make a decision. The decision is the first step, but then you need to be willing to do the work, to integrate it gently, easily, softly. It's not like it doesn't have to be a painful process. It can be actually a very gentle process, depending on how you go about this. But it means integrating your emotions again into yourself, and then moving forward from that starting point. Okay? I hope this explains a little bit the question marks around the heart and living from the heart, because that's what it is about, from the kind of how do I move into that direction first standpoint. Okay? Okay. I'm going to love you and leave you for today, and we'll hear each other next time.